So Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father. So whoever eats me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven, not like that which your ancestors ate, and they died. But the one who eats this bread will live forever. The word of the Lord. There was 3 old men who snuck off from their retirement center to take an afternoon dip in a nearby pool. It was an indoor pool on a wing of a very large house. They knew the owners were only there at night so they could sneak in the afternoon. Now, there was a strange glow in the bottom of the pool, but they ignored that, and they creakily got into the pool in the shallow end. They had a wonderful time, floating in the water for a few moments, defying gravity. And they went back home feeling better than they had in years. It was so good they decided to go back the next day. And then the next day. And the next. And pretty soon it became apparent that this was no ordinary pool. The same men who had been creaking down the steps the days before were now doing cannonballs and backflips off the diving board. Soon they were eating spicy foods again, dancing the tango, and flirting with their wives. This is a scene from the movie Cocoon. Probably a lot of you who are my age saw it. And for anyone who has grown tired of being old or grown tired of feeling old, it is a delightful fantasy. A pool in which old age is washed away. Does sound good, doesn't it? Hundreds of years ago, tribes in Central America and the West Indies believed that there were spring-like waters that existed somewhere in the Bahamas. Well, Spanish explorers heard about this and they tried to find it. I live in St. Augustine, and Ponce de Leon searched all around for that fountain of youth that would make him forever young. Little side story. It didn't work for old Ponce. There is a statue of him in downtown St. Augustine pointing that way. And I think he's pointing at the Indian who shot him with an arrow and killed him. But imagine that, being young forever. Wrinkled skin would become smooth again. Those arthritic joints would suddenly move smoothly again. You could throw away your walking cane and still be a member of the AARP. If that were all really possible, wouldn't you do almost anything for it? Eternal youth. Sounds wonderful. When you were young, though, you didn't think about it. You had a different set of desires. You wanted to grow a little taller, get your driver's license, meet someone special, find a job. You didn't want to be younger. You wanted to be older. You wanted to be all grown up. So if you offer a 13-year-old boy a dip in a pool that's going to make him younger, he's going to run in the opposite direction. So maybe being young isn't our greatest desire. Maybe there's something deeper. Ask a parent sitting on the sidelines in a folding chair on a Saturday morning, watching a daughter run up and down the soccer field and occasionally watching him get a foot on the ball. Surrounded by family and friends, that parent may say, "This is as good as it gets. This is the stuff of real living. This is what fills our memories and our scrapbooks. And it's the memory that makes you smile at 3 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. This is life. And if we want anything to last forever, is not youth, it's life. So I don't think Jesus could have brought us a better invitation than the one he brings in this passage from John, the offer of eternal life. When he talks about eternal life, he doesn't merely mean existing forever. No one wants to exist forever on life support in a hospital room. This is the same Jesus who in chapter 10 tells us that he came so that we can have life abundantly. Abundant life is made up of those golden moments, those ones where you want to take a deep breath and just hold that moment. When you could, if you could, just push pause, or at least make time move a little slower, because you want that moment to last. All those moments when you think to yourself, it doesn't get better than this. That's real living. And we'd do almost anything to make it last forever. Well, almost anything. I am the living bread that came down from heaven, Jesus said. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever, and the bread that I will give you for the world is my flesh. And the people began to wonder, how is this guy giving us his flesh to eat? That just sounds gross. But Jesus goes on, unless you eat this flesh from the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. And those who do will have eternal life. Most of those who were listening probably walked away. That's a hard saying to hear. And it is hard, but it's not impossible. You who have ears to hear something like this. We hear Jesus saying, I am the source of life. Just because you went to Publix and bought a loaf of bread and you put it in the house, that doesn't mean it's going to fill you. You have to eat it. That's how it is with Jesus. You can't just be acquainted with him. You have to have him be a part of you. It takes a daily feeding on him. You have to hunger for him in the same way that you hunger for food and for drink. I get the idea from this passage that if we could ever develop that kind of hunger, that it would be satisfying. And that we might develop a fulfillment of our deepest longing. Not eternal youth, but eternal life. And we could turn to a friend and tell them the good news and say, it doesn't get any better than this. There's a young singer-songwriter named Caitlin Tarver who had a new song coming out. And up in Nashville, she went to a building. Of course, she got permission. On the side of the building, painted the side of the building white. And then in large black letters, painted a question. What makes a life good? And then she filmed a music video inviting people to come and write on that wall, what makes a life good? Some of the things that were written included loving somebody, making lots of money, dogs, adventure, friends, family, great music. It was Nashville after all. Taking risks, surrounding yourself with good people, food, authenticity. I liked that, the song and the music video so much that I tried it in my classroom last spring. I went on the classroom on the board, wrote up there, what makes a life good? And I gave the little marker to each kid in class, come up here and write, what makes a life good? It's a very early morning class, 8 a.m. class. So a few of the responses I got were coffee. But it was amazing how similar the answers were from time to time in each of my different classes. If it was you, and you got the marker, you were in Nashville and painting something on that wall, what would your response be? What makes a life good? But the biggest feeling I got out of this exercise is that the world seems to be asking, if you know, will you please tell me? In the quest for eternal youth, some people do most anything. Now, my daughter lives in Los Angeles, and the things that she sees and she tells me about, oh my goodness. People who go to get personal trainers to try to stay fit. People who eat things no self-respecting 13-year-old would touch. They see plastic surgeons that have a little work done and get those injections of Botox so they can't smile or talk for a while, smoothing out those wrinkles. Trying to hold on to their youth, but not holding on to their life. So the next time we're at communion, don't think of it as a fountain of youth, but as a table of life. And that the meal of bread and juice will be the first step in keeping Christ in your heart. If you do that, you'll begin to understand what Jesus meant when he said, "This is the bread that came down from heaven. And those who eat that bread will live forever."